He told me I was his last joy, called me his whole world in front of everyone. But when I finally saw love in his eyes, he erased me like I never existed. But then, I gave him a life so empty, even time refused to stay with him. He told me I was his last joy, called me his whole world in front of everyone. And I believed him. God, how deeply I believed him. To the world, he was my gentle, smiling grandfather. But to me, he was everything, my shelter in a storm I never asked for, my anchor when the world around me kept shifting and breaking. My parents weren't really in the picture. My mother left when I was 5, and my father, well, he stayed only long enough to make sure I knew it was my fault they both disappeared. So when Grandpa took me in, I didn't just move into his house. I moved into his heart, or at least, that's what I thought. I still remember the first night I stayed with him. I had a suitcase full of clothes 2 sizes too small and a heart so full of cracks it barely beat. He knelt down to my level, cupped my face in his weathered hands, and whispered, "You're safe now. I promise you'll never be alone again." And just like that, I started to breathe. He became my morning and my night. Every school event, every scraped knee, every nightmare that clawed at me in the dark, he was there. Wrapping me in old flannel blankets that smelled like safety. Cooking me breakfast even when his hands shook from arthritis. Sitting at the edge of my bed humming lullabies he barely remembered. To everyone else, I was just a child he took in out of duty. But behind closed doors, I was his light. His last joy, as he called me. "You're the reason I wake up with a purpose," he'd say, brushing back my hair like I was fragile porcelain. He made me believe in family again. He made me believe in love. He made me forget I was abandoned. Every Sunday, we had our tradition. Tea at 4 p.m. 2 mismatched cups, his from his wedding set, mine from a garage sale. We'd sit in the garden under the half-dead lemon tree, and he'd ask about my week with a look that said you matter here. No one else ever looked at me like that. Birthdays were simple but filled with meaning. He'd handwrite me long letters, telling me how proud he was. That I was growing into someone kind. Someone strong. Someone he would fight the world to protect. And maybe that's why I never saw it coming. Because how could I imagine that the only person who made me feel seen was always practicing how to forget me? Back then, I didn't know the difference between love and obligation. Between being cherished and being used as a cover. I didn't see the cracks in his smile when others looked too closely. I didn't notice how he always said the perfect thing, but never let anyone else in too close. I didn't question why he kept his past locked up tighter than the old attic upstairs. I was just a child who wanted to believe. And he gave me the illusion so perfectly, I never once looked for the trapdoor beneath it. One night, I asked him why he never remarried after Grandma passed. He smiled gently and said, "Because all the love I had left went into you." And I cried myself to sleep, thinking I was lucky. I didn't realize that sometimes, when people lose everything, they don't love what comes next. They cling to it. They use it. And when it stops serving their pain, they discard it like a worn-out cane that's no longer needed to walk. But that part of the story comes later. For now, in this chapter, I was still his world. Or so I thought. They say when someone truly loves you, you can feel it in the silences, in the space between words, in the way their eyes hold yours a second longer. For a long time, I believed that's what he gave me. But as I got older, I started noticing the gaps. The things that didn't quite fit. At first, they were small. Little inconsistencies in his stories. A flicker in his expression when I asked about the past. The way he'd suddenly change the topic if I brought up my parents. I thought maybe it was just pain. Maybe talking about them brought back memories he didn't want to relive. So I let it go. But then it got stranger. He'd have phone calls he took behind closed doors, conversations that ended with abrupt silence when I walked into the room. He'd receive letters and quickly burn them in the fireplace, pretending they were nothing. When I asked, he'd smile and say, "Just old ghosts. Nothing worth remembering." Still, I trusted him. Because when someone saves you, you don't question them. You just hold on tighter. And I did. I held on through every weird mood swing. Through every cold stare he brushed off with a laugh. Through every family gathering he refused to attend, like he was hiding from someone or something. But the biggest red flag, he never once let me into the attic. That room, always locked, always sealed with a rusted padlock, became a silent obsession in my mind. He told me it was dangerous, that the floorboards were rotting, that I could fall through. But I heard the creaks at night. I heard him up there pacing, talking to himself. And then came the whispers. People in town started treating me differently. Some neighbors would look at me with pity. A few old family friends avoided eye contact entirely. Once, I overheard someone mutter, "Poor thing. Doesn't even know." Doesn't even know what? I confronted Grandpa one night, trembling, angry, scared. He smiled gently and said, "People talk, sweetheart. They like drama. Don't let it get to you. You and I, we're all that matters." And again, I believed him. Because I wanted to. But deep down, something shifted. I began to feel like a piece in a game I didn't understand. A pawn on a board where only he could see the full layout. And slowly, I started pulling away. I stopped telling him everything. I started reading the letters he thought I never noticed. And what I found was the beginning of the unraveling. One of the letters wasn't burnt properly. The edges were charred, but the ink survived. It was from someone named L. The message was short. "You promised to tell them by now. If you wait too long, they'll hate you more for it." I froze. Who was L? What was he supposed to tell me? I didn't confront him this time. I just watched. Carefully. Quietly. Like someone who realizes they've been living inside a beautifully painted lie. And then, one morning, I saw something that broke my illusion completely. A photo. Old. Faded. Stuffed into a drawer he thought I'd never open. It was of me, a baby being held. But not by Grandpa. By my mother. And standing behind her, smiling, hand on her shoulder, was Grandpa. They looked happy. Too happy. Like there was no sign of the bitterness he always claimed they had. I stared at that photo for hours. My entire life, he told me she ran away. That she abandoned me. That she never looked back. But in that photo, she looked like she loved me. She looked like she wanted me. And suddenly, I knew. There was more. There was so much more he had never told me. My world didn't just shake. It cracked. I wanted to believe he had his reasons. That maybe he was protecting me. But a new thought had taken root in my mind. What if he didn't save me out of love? What if he took me to keep me? To own me? And that terrifying idea was the moment I stopped being his last joy and started becoming his slow reckoning. Because love doesn't erase someone's truth. But control? Control always does. After that day, everything changed, not in the world around me, but inside me. I no longer saw Grandpa as the man who saved me. I saw him as the man who built a cage around me and called it love. Still, I didn't confront him. I couldn't, because if I asked and he lied, I'd break. And if he told me the truth, I might not survive it. So I did what I had to. I started acting. Smiling. Laughing. Drinking his tea. Sitting under the lemon tree like nothing had changed. But every moment with him felt like glass pressing into my skin. Because I didn't just suspect anymore. I knew. I started digging. Old files, storage boxes, locked drawers. I learned how to pick his filing cabinet in the middle of the night. I learned the patterns of his medicine, his sleep schedule, the way his hand twitched when he lied. And I found it. The document that shattered me completely. A court letter. Years old. Addressed to him. Custody granted, temporary guardianship over me. With a clause. Pending maternal evaluation. Pending maternal evaluation. Which meant My mother didn't leave me. She fought for me. She wanted me back. She just never got the chance. Because Grandpa never told her I was still here. Because he made sure the paperwork got lost. Because he erased her from my life. On purpose. And I spent years loving the man who stole my entire story. The moment I read that letter, something inside me cracked so deep it never fully healed. I stared at it for hours, trying to unfeel every memory, every laugh, every hug, every lie he wrapped in the warm blanket of protection. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I went to the garden, the place that used to feel safe. He was already there, sitting under the lemon tree. He looked at me like he always did, like I was the moon and stars and all the light in his fading world. And for the first time, I saw it. Not love, not devotion, possession, obsession, control. He smiled, patted the chair beside him, and said, "Tea, sweetheart?" I sat down, not because I wanted to, but because I was about to tear down the last wall between us. I looked him straight in the eyes and asked, "What really happened to my mother?" His hand froze mid-stir. His smile twitched, but only for a second. Then he sighed and looked at me with something almost soft. "You found the papers." I nodded. He didn't deny it, didn't lie, didn't flinch. Instead, he said something that shattered the last piece of my childhood. "She didn't deserve you. She would have ruined you. I gave you everything. I raised you right." I felt sick. My voice shook as I whispered, "You stole me." He just looked away. "You're better because of it. You don't see it now, but one day you will." I stood up, my hands clenched, my heart hollow. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But all I did was whisper, "You lied to me. My whole life." His voice turned sharp then, not the soft warmth I knew, but something colder. "And what would you have done without me? You needed someone. I was that someone. You owe me. You owe me." 3 words. So simple. So ugly. That's when I realized. He never loved me for who I was. He loved me for what I gave him. Purpose. Control. A reason to keep pretending he was the hero. And now that I knew the truth, I wasn't his joy anymore. I was a threat. That night, I left the house. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't take anything. Because the only thing I truly owned was my pain. And from that pain, I would carve my revenge. Not loud. Not violent. But slow. Precise. Unrelenting. Because I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't even look back. I would become the silence he couldn't ignore. And I would make sure he felt every second of the emptiness he gave me. I left with nothing. No suitcase. No goodbye. Just the truth clutched like a blade inside my chest. I didn't go to friends, because I had none. He made sure of that. Every connection I ever tried to build, he quietly severed. "They don't understand you," he'd say. "You're better off without them." And I believed him. Because I needed to. But now, I didn't need anything from him. Except for him to suffer. I disappeared. Vanished from his life like I had never existed, just like he did to my mother. No calls. No letters. No messages. Silence. It didn't take long for him to notice. At first, he tried to find me. I know because the neighbors called. He'd gone door to door, asking, pleading. "She's not well," he told them. "She's confused. She's been through a lot." Lies. So many lies. Even after everything, he needed to control the narrative. He even reported me missing. But I was of legal age now. And when the police found me, working in a bookstore under a new name, I told them the truth. That I had left. That I wanted nothing to do with him. And when they told him, something inside him shattered. I know because he stopped trying to find me and started erasing me instead. He took down every photo of me in the house. He told everyone I had gone away for school. He canceled the family tea traditions. He sold the lemon tree. He burned my room. Literally. Set fire to it. Said it was an accident. But I know better. Because for him, if he couldn't control me, I couldn't exist. But the thing is, erasure works both ways. So I made sure to erase him too. Not from the world. From myself. I deleted every voicemail. Blocked his number. Tore up the old birthday letters he wrote me in shaky hands. It hurt. God. It hurt like death. Because I wasn't just losing him. I was losing who I thought I was. A child loved. A girl protected. A soul worth holding. But when someone loves you only on the condition that they own you, that's not love. That's a sentence. And I was finally free. Broken? Yes. Alone? Definitely. But free. I changed my name. Found a studio apartment far from the city. Started building a life from the ashes. Quiet, careful. Invisible. And for a while, I thought maybe that would be enough. To vanish. To leave him in silence. To watch the man who once called me his whole world sit in a house full of ghosts. But then, something happened. One day, I saw an obituary in the local paper. It wasn't his. It was my mother's. She'd passed away quietly, after years of searching for me. Years spent hoping her daughter might still remember her. Years where he kept us apart. She died with my name on her lips. And I hadn't even known she was alive. That was the final spark. That was the moment grief turned to rage. When silence was no longer enough. When I knew. He didn't deserve to be forgotten. He deserved to feel everything he made me feel. Every void. Every ache. Every scream swallowed in the dark. He didn't deserve peace. He deserved emptiness. The kind that eats at your bones. The kind that makes time itself feel like a punishment. And I would give it to him. Not with poison. Not with fire. Not with death. But with something colder. Longer. Unforgiving. A plan. Patient. Cruel. Flawless. Revenge isn't about anger. It's about precision. And mine would not come in flames or screams. It would come in emptiness. In the slow unraveling of a man who once believed he could erase anyone who didn't worship him. He thought I was gone. Forgotten. Ashes scattered in the wind. So I became a shadow. Quiet. Careful. Everywhere. First, I studied him. The new routines. The new mask he wore in town. The gentle old man grieving the loss of his granddaughter. He played it well. Even started attending church again. People whispered about how lonely he looked, how broken he must be. But I knew better. He wasn't broken. He was bored. Without me, he had no game to play. No mind to mold. No soul to manipulate. So I gave him something new to wonder about. I started with little things. A photo of me, mailed to his house, no return address. Just a note on the back. Still here. Then, the lemon tree. It had been chopped down by the new owners. But one night, someone left a small potted lemon sapling on his porch. With a ribbon. And a tag that read, "Roots Remember." I could imagine his face. The confusion. The chill crawling up his spine. Was it guilt? Fear? Or worse, hope? I didn't care. I wasn't done. Next came the calls. Always at 2:17 a.m. The time my mother gave birth to me. The phone would ring once. Then stop. No voice. No breathing. Just the echo of what he'd buried coming back to life. Then, the whispers in town. A woman asking about him at the pharmacy. A figure walking past his window at dusk. A card slipped under his door. She knows. By then, I knew I had him. He started becoming paranoid. People told me, without knowing I was me. He was forgetting things, talking to people who weren't there, asking the same questions over and over. Have you seen her? Did she come back? Did she say anything about me? But no one knew who her was, because I had erased myself so completely. I was now a ghost. And ghosts, they don't scream. They haunt. But the final piece, that came when I sent him her voice. My mother. I found one of her old cassette tapes, hidden in a thrift store donation box from years ago. She was singing, soft, fragile, a lullaby she once wrote for me when I was a baby. I had it digitized, cleaned, restored, and then I sent it to him. A plain USB drive. No note, no explanation, just her voice, echoing through the halls of that house he thought belonged to him alone. I don't know what he did when he played it. I don't need to. Because the next morning, a neighbor said they saw him crying on the porch, muttering my mother's name over and over. But crying wasn't enough. Regret wasn't justice. I didn't want him to feel sorry. I wanted him to feel hollow. To stare at a wall and see all the lives he destroyed. To remember my mother's voice every time the wind passed through the trees. To hear my silence in the ticking of every clock. To look at every empty room and feel a little more of his soul rot. I didn't want revenge in fire. I wanted it in frost. To seep into his bones. To let him know he lost the only person who ever truly saw him, and now she would never return. Because he didn't just kill my childhood. He killed my mother's hope. And that demanded a different kind of justice. The kind that stays. The kind that waits. The kind that never lets go. By the time winter came, he was a shell of the man the world once admired. The porch where we used to sip tea was now cracked and silent. The lemon tree stump, still there, had grown moldy. Neighbors said he barely spoke anymore. He'd just sit by the window, waiting. But for what? Even he didn't know. Because I gave him nothing to hold on to. No closure. No answers. Just shadows. I didn't return to confront him. Didn't knock on that door. Didn't look into those old, guilt-washed eyes. Because I wanted him to sit with the not knowing. I wanted him to ask himself every night if I was still out there. Still watching. Still remembering. And I was. I became the echo he couldn't silence. The guilt he couldn't drink away. The question he couldn't answer. He began calling the old family priest. Leaving voicemails about sins, confessions, second chances. Asking whether forgiveness was still possible. Whether someone who meant well could still be saved. He never got a call back. And slowly the town turned too. Because silence speaks. And I let it speak louder than any scream could. Stories leaked. Someone whispered about that girl who wasn't allowed visitors. The girl who vanished. The girl he said was sick. People started wondering. The pharmacist who used to hand over my pills without question started remembering how afraid I always looked. The mailman recalled how my letters to my mother always came back, unopened, returned. The librarian remembered how I clung to books about runaway daughters and stolen lives. And it began to crack. His image. His legend. His good grandfather mask. Because when silence stretches too long, people start hearing the things they try to ignore. And then came the final blow. A letter. Type. Anonymous. Sent to the local newspaper. It told the story of a girl who had been raised in a house of lies. It spoke of a custody battle, a mother erased, a life rewritten by a man desperate for control. It gave no names. No details. Just truth. And that was enough. They published it. A whole column called, "The Ones We Hide in Plain Sight." People began talking. Whispers turned to stares. Support turned to suspicion. He stopped leaving the house. The man who once ruled every room with a charming smile and grandfatherly warmth now hid behind drawn curtains. Because he wasn't just haunted by me anymore. He was being seen. The silence screamed louder every day. Every time he turned on the radio. Every time he walked past the empty room. Every time he closed his eyes and saw my mother's face. And still, I didn't go back. Because revenge isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes, it's about becoming the absence that devours them. I didn't need to shout. I just had to exist out of reach. Because that's what he hated most. Control. Lost. Forever. And that was just the beginning of what he deserved. He started writing letters. Dozens of them. Shaky handwriting on yellowing paper, addressed to no one. And to me all at once. Some begged. Some explained. Some didn't make sense at all. I did what I thought was best. I only wanted to protect you. She left me no choice. Come home. But I wasn't his to summon anymore. I never was. He just made me believe I was. The letters kept coming. Folded into the cracks of my old school's fence. Left with librarians. Tucked under a rock near the lemon grove that no longer bloomed. He was unraveling. The man who once held my entire world in his palm was now holding on to ghosts. And I made sure he felt every inch of that emptiness. The house, once bright with fake warmth, grew cold. No visitors. No calls. The curtains never opened. He stopped shaving. Stopped eating, they said. Stopped speaking altogether. Because guilt is a slow poison. And I was the dose he could never vomit out. His legacy? Cracking. His reputation? Tarnished. That letter in the paper, it had done more than shame him. It isolated him. People avoided him in stores. Whispers followed him at church. And no one came for tea anymore. He wasn't just alone. He was rotting. And yet, it wasn't enough. Because he still had his memories. Still had the stories he told himself in the dark. Still had the illusion that what he did might have been right. So I tore that apart too. One day, a package arrived on his doorstep. Wrapped in black paper. No name. No return address. Inside? A photo. It was me, but not broken, not small, not afraid. It was me standing tall, smiling, arms around the mother he stole from me. Because I had found her family. Her real story. And before she died, I made sure she knew. I was never his to keep. I visited the people she left behind. They gave me her letters, all the ones he'd hidden. They gave me photos. And memories. And truth. The photo in the package? It was taken during one of those visits. A final gift from the woman he buried while she was still alive. The back of the photo said, "She found her way back to me, even if only for a moment." That moment was enough. Enough to destroy whatever illusion he had left. After that, the letter stopped. The lights in his house never turned on again. The blinds stayed closed. The mailbox overflowed. The world moved on. But he couldn't. Because I didn't just leave him alone. I left him with the truth. They found him in the winter. Alone. Slumped in his favorite chair. The fireplace cold. No sign of struggle. Just silence. In his lap was the photo I sent him, me, whole and smiling. On the floor, one last letter. Unsent. Unfinished. It read, "I thought I saved you. But maybe I only destroyed you. Or maybe I destroyed myself." No one claimed the body for days. No family. No visitors. The man who once controlled every chapter of my story had no one to write the end of his. They buried him quietly. A modest grave. No speeches. No mourners. Just cold earth swallowing everything he tried to hold onto. I didn't attend. I didn't cry. I didn't send flowers. Because the girl he destroyed no longer existed. And the woman I became? She didn't need closure. She was the closure. But I did leave him one thing. One final message, carved into a stone just beyond his grave. Hidden where only the truly curious would find it. It read, "You took everything from me, and I gave you nothing back, not even the comfort of forgetting. This silence is your echo, because in the end, I didn't have to raise my voice to destroy him. I didn't have to take a single thing. I just made sure he lived long enough to realize he never broke me. He only carved out the space where my strength would grow. He taught me pain, but I turned pain into purpose. He taught me silence, but I turned silence into screams he'd never escape. He tried to erase me, but I became the story written in ink he could never wash away. And now, when people speak of him, they no longer say, he was a good man. They say, no one really knew him. Something was always off. Did you hear what they say he did? His memory, tainted. His legacy, erased. Exactly like he tried to do to me. But I didn't just survive. I rewrote the ending. In ink. In blood. In silence. And in truth. So when time came knocking at his door, it didn't find a hero. It didn't find a savior. It found a coward. Alone. Unloved. Unredeemed. And I gave him a life so empty. Even time refused to stay with him. And that was a wound no lie could ever bandage.